relationships. And so imagine if you brought that dynamic to your household. It's unquestionable that you're going to be an amazing leader as you're healing as well. You don't have to be fully healed to be a great leader. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have all the answers to be a leader. You could still be going through the storm, working your way through that, and still be showing your family, listen, it's tough for me right now, but I'm still showing up. I'm still here. I'm still leading with you guys, right? We're still walking the path. And I think that's the most important thing, is being present. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I greatly appreciate you guys tapping in with me. This episode is primarily focused towards the father. So if you know of a father that is not tapped in with the podcast, please share this message with them. It's going to greatly impact their lives and those around them. But I really wanted to speak about fatherhood and healing and what that looks like. How do you lead a family when you're the one that's feeling broken on the inside? I think a lot of men tend to stay silent in that situation. I know I did when I was going through something similar as well. And we have a lot of hats as a father, right? We're not only the dad, but we're the protector and we're the provider in most cases. And we're the rock of the family. We hold the family together. And so I just, it's not until you've walked through that fire, you've come out on the other side, that you then have the realization that being strong isn't about hiding your pain, right? But it's about healing while you're leading from the front. And I think this is something that a lot of men, again, tend to deviate from that conversation with their loved one or anyone in that particular sense, just to uphold that persona of what a man should think and feel like and act like when it comes to leading his family. So, there was a time when I was trying to be everything to my family, to everyone for that matter. Again, the provider, the protector, the father, but inside, I didn't feel like I was those things, right? I felt like I was falling apart. I felt like I was kind of just, I don't know, like soggy paper, like really just trying to hold myself together. And, that led to a lot of internal dialect with myself. It led to a lot of separation when it comes to communication with my spouse at the time, my kids, my relationships just really, faltered because I allowed myself to distance myself from my family because I didn't want them to see the pain that I was in, right? Because again, I my belief system, right, in which I was raised is that the man, again, is the rock, right? He holds the family together. He leads by example. He leads from the front. And so, it's just put your feelings to the side, man up, do what you need to do, and there really wasn't a lot of space at that time for me to vent or for me to express myself. I don't feel that my spouse at the time would have looked at me differently. I'm not really sure. I think there would have been, had I opened up that dialogue, I think there would have been some support there. But I think there was just too much of a conscious belief on my side that was wrong to do, and that I shouldn't, either A, put that burden on them, or B, show up in that way, because then that would create maybe worry and doubt for them, and kind of the household. So I didn't want to put that on anyone else. So I figured I'll just muster through as best as I can and make the best decisions that I possibly can for myself and my family. I guess in my mind, I was hoping that things would just manifest themselves, right? And they would change for the better over time. And again, I was showing up physically. There was a time where my spouse at the time had mentioned that, you were there physically, but mentally you were checked out. Like you weren't there. You know what I mean? And and emotionally as well. I was somewhere else. I was always in my head about fixing problems. Like, how am I going to turn myself around financially? How am I going to turn my relationships around? Like, I was just always like, how do I get out of this rut? This life that I'm living isn't equivalent to what I have dreamed of, or the vision that I see for myself and my family. And I was always just in my head, like, how do I make it better? How do I make it better? And yeah, that took me, literally, it took me away from being present in the moment on whatever I was doing. And so because of that, I stayed quiet a lot of the times. Now, there were a few times, where, as you guys have dealt with in your lives, I'm sure we can only endure pain for so much, for so long, right? Before it starts to boil over. So if you don't express yourself physically or in a healthy, communicative way, we know that those feelings that you have inside, they're going to fester, they're going to build up, and then at some point they're going to erupt. And for me, that was the case where, I just got so fed up. I remember sitting on the couch. My spouse and the kids were in the kitchen, and I'm literally just sitting on the couch. The TV's not on, and I'm just ruminating in my head. I'm just going over thoughts in my head of like how shitty my life is right now. And it spilled out. It got to a point where I was just like, I can't keep this inside anymore. And I remember sitting on the couch, and tears started falling. And then I walk in the living room, I walk in the kitchen, and my spouse sees me. And she sees me crying, and she's like, what is happening? What's going on? And then I just let it all out. You know what I mean? And so I'm just sitting there just sobbing tears, and she stands up and she hugs me. And as she's holding me, I'm just telling her, like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do this anymore. That's the only thing. I just kept repeating that. I can't do this anymore. And I want to give you guys some context. What I was meaning by that was I can't live this life that I'm living. And it had nothing to do with being married or having kids. It was just always trying to dig myself out of this financial turmoil that I had put myself in. And it was digging myself out of finding a passion and finding purpose in life and finding a career that matched who I was, that matched my essence. That's what I was referring to as, I can't do this anymore. Because it was just jumping from job to job, and there was never really any stability. And it was just like, I'm just grasping at things, right? I'm throwing spaghetti on a wall, just seeing what sticks, and hoping that the life that I envisioned for myself, came to fruition. And, through that silence, it created a lot of distance between my spouse and I and my kids. Again, our relationships were very superficial, very surface level relationships. And my heart was super heavy. My heart was heavy because I've always been a person who has expected or has had very high expectations of myself. I don't know if that's the Leo in me or what, or if that was how I was raised. But I just always had high expectations for myself. And I don't know. I just always saw myself as someone who was going to be very successful, who was going to go on to do great things, who very thought-provoking. But in those times, in those moments, I felt the furthest from that, right? I felt like I was just drifting through life. I was taking what it was giving me, and I didn't know how to fix it. And so it took me a long time, man. It took me a long time to realize, just kind of like, I don't have to be the strong, masculine male that is projected upon men as it relates to, leading a family. I didn't have to set aside my pain and hide it from everyone else and really live two lives within the same household, right? I'm living, I'm multiple people in this household, right? And when the lights are off and I'm alone and I'm in the dark, I'm soft and I'm scared and I have no idea what to do. I don't have any answers. I don't have the answers, and I have no one in my mind. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I did have people that I could talk to, but made a conscious decision, not to choose that just because of the consequences that I thought would result from me opening up and being vulnerable to the people that I love, and not really sure what that reaction was going to be like. If I was going to be judged for how I was feeling, maybe they wouldn't say anything in that moment, but in the back of their mind, they're like, maybe they start to lose trust in my ability to make decisions for the family. Like, I don't know. There was just a lot of things that were kind of going on. I was just like, let me just kind of keep it to myself. But what I want you guys out there listening and watching to understand is that, you guys don't have to have it all together. You know what I mean? Like, to be a good father, you don't have to be the total package to be a great dad, to be a great leader within your household. You just have to be honest. You just have to be honest with yourself first, right? I think that is a quality or a characteristic of a great leader, for one, right? Especially when you're leading your family, is to be honest with them, altruistic, and being able to open that container, have that container open within your household, that vulnerability is there. It exists. It's warranted. Honesty is there. It's warranted in the household. And that regardless of, what's being said or how people are feeling, there's no judgment. Safe zone. And so if you're a father out there that feels like I described, like I was, broken inside and not knowing any of the answers, but yet still trying to hold down the fort and be that strong masculine man for your family, I'm here to tell you, bro, like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share what's going on. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to let your kids see you crying in those moments, right? And I do want to preference, sure, there's going to be a time and a place in which how much vulnerability you obviously share with children, right? Because of their capability of understanding. And how much vulnerability you share with your wife. I do think in the perfect world, in my future relationship, that I would want to be able to share literally anything with my spouse. Literally anything. Because I would want them to have that level of comfort within themselves to do the same with me, right? So, I say that, I don't, some of you guys are probably like, well, okay, is it okay for me to like cry around them every day? Well, you probably don't want to do that. You probably don't want to cry around them every day, but you guys know what I'm saying, right? Again, the most important thing that I want you guys to take from that is being honest with yourself first, and allowing and holding space to render your thoughts and to render what you feel. Does not take away from the amazing father that you are. It does not take away from your ability to lead. I think you're going to be seen as more of a leader in the eyes of your family, especially if you have a woman or a spouse that understands self-development, that understands vulnerability, that understands that men go through things too. We have just as many problems as women do, right? If not more. And we hurt as well. And so to have someone that can hold space for you in that container and allow you to express yourself and allow you to feel without any judgment is an amazing space. And so if you guys do have that, please, please, please utilize that space. So as you guys know, I love to keep the podcast very simple. And so I always give you guys a couple of takeaways. So here's the first one here for your notes. Number 1, presence is greater than perfection. Your kids don't need a flawless dad. They need a present one, right? So you being there, even if you're broken, is more powerful than you disappearing and putting on a mask, layering your pain and things that you're going through. Your kids need you to be present. This also includes your spouse as well, right? So I would say encompasses the family needs you to be present. They don't need you to be perfect. And I think for a long time, I was under that misconception. I wanted to make sure that I played the part, that I was strong, and that they never seen me cry. And, I did it very well. I did that very well. However, it still didn't work out. You know what I mean? Like it just created distance, like I said before. Yeah, I mean, now when I have conversations with my kids now, so my daughter will be 21 in August. My son just turned 12, and so now when I have conversations with them, there's times where I've cried in front of them, and I'm very vulnerable with my children as far as like what it is I'm thinking, what it is I'm feeling, um, and I think that my son is very smart, so he recognizes these things. My daughter as well. So I think that just opens up a gate for a lot of honest communication between us. And I think with my ex-wife and us having that same kind of open dialect as well, and good relationship, it definitely strengthens the relationship on all fronts. And it also, by you being an honest leader, and one that still is leading, even though you're going through some things, you're fixing things within yourself, you're also empowering the folks around you to do better, to be better, right? So don't think that your weakness, right, and you hurting and dealing with pain is something that is taking away, and actually it's adding value to others around you, because it's now giving them an example, right? Which a leader is someone who shows by example. It's giving others around you an example of like, wow, this man can be vulnerable and he can be strong. This man can be soft and he can be valiant when he needs to be, right? And your kids are going to see that, like, wow. So when you are operating from that essence of being honest and being vulnerable, especially for the fathers that have daughters, you're molding your daughter's mind to, at some point when she gets into dating and marriage, most of the time she's going to replicate what she's seen in the household, how the man, or how you as the father is treating her, how you as the man treated her mother, right? How soft you were with her, all right? How masculine you may have been with her at times, right? Like, all these things that you do and how you act, you behave, you think, you speak, all these things are forming a formula within your children's minds, right? Especially your daughters. And when they go out in the world and they meet a man, they're most likely going to look for the same characteristics that they were shown or have become to know within the household in that man that they're talking to or searching for. So you got to be very mindful that you can create a lot of destruction outside of yourself by masking your pain and masking your hurt and putting on a facade in order to save face, right? In order to uphold the standard of how to be a leader and how to be a man to a family. And the second key takeaway that you guys can write down for your notes here is that silence isn't strength, right? So obviously, as I mentioned before, men are raised to believe we should, man up and stay quiet, and men who show their feelings and show vulnerability, they're weak, right? They act like girls, you know what I mean? That's a woman's trait, not a man's trait. And that's just far from the truth, right? That's just totally far from the truth, because as you evolve mentally, as you evolve as a man mentally, and you progress through life and you've experienced things and you see things, you know for certain that you staying quiet is not the answer. You're not going to stay quiet in your place of work if you're feeling that you're being underpaid. You're going to speak up. I don't know at what point that is for you, but at some point you're going to speak up because you're going to want more money, because you need to provide for your family, right? So you're going to say something. If someone is talking crap to you, or you're at a bar and a guy, starts talking reckless or whatever, or puts his hands on you, you're not going to stay silent. You're going to do something about it right then and there, right? So there are avenues in which men inherently act and speak out, and they're not silent. It should be no different in the household, when the situations are a lot softer and a lot calmer, right? And our animalistic side isn't rumbling, right? We should be able to act just as much as we do in those external circumstances as we can in the household with our loved ones. But as you guys know, like I said, bottling up your emotion creates distance. For the fathers out there that are married, you know what happens when, there is no communication between you and your spouse. It creates resentment. There's some stubbornness there. In my relationship prior, we used to see who would outlast who first, right? Who's gonna be the first one to crack and say something, and that would be days. Sometimes it would be days before we said anything to each other, and then when we did, it was boom. It was like an explosion. You know what I mean? And so it creates very unhealthy relationships. And I'm here to tell you that vulnerability is something that actually builds connection. I became a lot closer with my daughter when I started being more vulnerable with her, when I started to open up and tell her how I felt about our distant relationship and how I didn't like it and how I wanted to grow closer together with her. Even with the relationship that I have now with my ex-wife, where we're now able to have those types of conversations, those types of vulnerable conversations. That vulnerability is strengthening our connection, our relationship, to be able to be better co-parent together for our children, right? So vulnerability is something that you guys need to draw that nearer to you. A lot of us guys, we push vulnerability away because we consider it to be soft, or we've known it to be soft and woman-like, and that's further from the truth. And I think it's important too that your kids need to know that it's okay to express themselves. I tell my children, especially my son, my daughter, girls, listen, fathers know that raising girls is a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother ball game, right? There is a lot of estrogen going on. There's a lot of emotions going on. There's a lot of up and down. Like, listen, it's a lot to raise a girl. But more so so I don't really have to tell my daughter like, hey, it's okay to cry. No, she's gonna cry. Yep, she's gonna do it. I don't need to tell her. My son, on the other hand, he's more. I'm having to tell him more that it's okay to show your emotion. It's okay to express yourself. Let me know what's going on. Communicate. I want there to be a safe zone. I want you to feel you can come to me and talk to me about anything, and there's not going to be any judgment whatsoever. Because I want my son to experience that. What is that like for his father, me, to be a leader in that scenario, in that relationship, and I'm the one that's able to be vulnerable with him. Therefore, he can be vulnerable with me. And then as he grows to become a man and he starts to, build his family, he can introduce and do the same thing from day one, right? Everything that I do, everything that we do as fathers is to better our children, to create a life in which their lives are 10, 15, 20 times better than how we grew up, what we learned. Like, that should be the objective as a father when it comes to raising your children. Teaching them better than what we knew, how we were raised. And that way they can pass that along to their children, so that way we're creating better generations than the ones we had before us. And I would tell you, like, the third and the final takeaway or notes that you guys can have is healing is fatherhood, right? Like, leadership and healing aren't opposite. I'll repeat that again. Leadership and healing aren't opposite. They can happen at the same time. You can be a leader and still feel broken and still be on your journey and still be on the path of finding yourself and learning about who you are and what you value and your characteristics and what your morals are and where you're headed. Like, you could still be on the same trajectory, that you could do those things simultaneously. Because if you look at history, right? If you look at history, the guys who had already reached the pinnacle and they were already, this successful person or whatever, successful leader, they weren't the greatest leaders. It was the ones that were walking the path alongside them, learning themselves. because they were able to, the difference is because the guys that were still learning, that they were healing and still leading at the same time, they were able to connect on a totally different level than someone who was already up here trying to lead folks that are still down here, right? Because there was vulnerability. There was a true connection. There was this honesty factor, right? I personally, for any coaches that I've ever had, for any mentors that I've ever had, for any teachers that I've ever had, the ones that have had the biggest impact on me are the ones in which they allowed themselves to be themselves. They allowed themselves to talk about whatever it is that was going on with them. I have the most funnest conversation. This is why I love podcasting. This is why I love having deep conversations, because I personally, that's how I truly get to know somebody, through conversation. And not just like surface. I'm talking about like, how are you raised? What's your parents like? What was your upbringing like? What was your most difficult time in your life? Where was the most pain that you felt? Like, those questions are what builds true connection with someone, true, strong, unbreakable relationships. And so imagine if you brought that dynamic to your household. It's unquestionable that you're going to be an amazing leader as you're healing as well. You don't have to be fully healed to be a great leader. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have all the answers to be a leader. You could still be going through the storm, working your way through that, and still be showing your family, listen, it's tough for me right now, but I'm still showing up. I'm still here. I'm still leading with you guys, right? We're still walking the path. And I think that's the most important thing, is being present. Because I will tell you that your progress is your child's permission to grow. Your progress becomes your child's permission to grow. Because I'm telling you, as you guys already know, your children see and hear everything. And when your children and your spouses can see your progression, it immediately wants them to do the same for themselves. It immediately wants them to do better for themselves. They see you in a different light when you're healing as you go, when you're walking the path, and you're being honest with them, and you're sharing things with them, right? And you're letting them see your pain, but yet you're still showing up. They look at you in a different way. I think leadership is magnetized when that happens, because now they feel a sense of safety. They feel a sense of security, right? They know you. They feel like they deeply, deeply know who you are. They can trust you, which then allows them to give them that safe space to reciprocate that back. And again, my last point, when you work on yourself, it benefits the whole family. It's just reciprocation, right? Like, they see you growing, they see you reading, they see you advancing yourself, they see you working on yourself. It's just ultimately going to fall down line, right? And everyone else is going to want to do that for themselves too. Now, it may not be right away, and that's okay. We're not here to, build a cult of some sort, but as long as I always tell myself, the best that I can only do the best that I can do as a father, and teach my children what it is I know, what it is that I didn't know. That way they can have, a leg up in the race, so to speak. And that's all I can do. And if I just pray that they take heed to what I've said, what I've taught them, and they apply that in their own lives as well. That's all we can do as fathers. To the father listening who feels like he's failing because you're hurting, you're not failing. You're not failing. You're just feeling, and that's human, right? You don't have to be healed to be helpful, right? As we established, you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. you being a father and you showing up for your children and your family each and every single day, taking them to school, putting food on the table, putting clothes on their back, teaching them how to be good young men, good young women, teaching them values, teaching them morals, how to be kind to other people, how to be giving, how to be generous. That's powerful. That's impactful. That's a true leader. So I say just keep showing up. Keep showing up. Keep fighting. Keep working. Keep progressing. Allow yourself to evolve mentally, and don't seclude those that are close to you. Bring them in. Allow them to see the transformation. Allow them to see your growth. Allow them to feel you, to connect with you on a deeper level. And that's what true strength looks like. And I think the one thing that that I know my kids will remember is they'll remember that. You know, my son has already told me before, and again, he's only 12, but he's smart kid. He's told me before, he's like, you know, I look up to you a lot because, you know, you do so much for us, and you know, you're always reading books and you're always studying and learning and teaching me things. And I'm just like, wow, like you're 12 years old and you're already, you know, aware of things like that, or you're saying those things to me now. So it's like, and I personally feel like I haven't even taught him much. Like, I guess the things that I if I were to write down some things that I want to teach him, like my list is long, and I'm like, I haven't even gotten to the list yet. You know what I mean? But yet, through my actions and the way that I communicate with him, that's enough. You know, that's one hell of a start. So in the end, you know, if this episode resonates with you, and you know of a father who's struggling silently, please share this episode with them. I think it would greatly impact their lives and you know, help them move forward in their journey. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube, or, you know, leave us a review on the podcast platform. I love these talks with you guys. I am really looking forward to evolving the show and to bringing on guests and really having some more interactive conversations. But this fills my cup. This is something that I truly enjoy, having these conversations with you guys. And I warrant your guys' feedback. I warrant, you know, you guys, you know, either emailing me or finding me on social media and shooting me a message. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the show, about the episode, you know, kind of some things that you guys are going through in your life. And if I can just be a vessel in this world to my own children, to my own family, and to those, you know, that I'm not necessarily connected with, if I can just be a beacon of light in any form that helps advance, you know, someone's life, the knowledge of someone, that's my purpose. That's what I'm here for. So again, I appreciate you guys for tapping in with me. You know, as I always say, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.